back to the stream. Sorry I'm late. I was up once again until 2 a.m. last night working on this blasted game. It keeps like, I don't know, it's like midnight and I'm like, okay, I'm pretty tired. Maybe I should go to bed, but let me just get this one last thing done. And then I get sucked into a rabbit hole for 2 hours and I can't go to bed when I'm like in the middle of a problem. Anyway, so I slept in a little bit too much today. Sorry about that, but it was in service of getting more of Alchemortis done because the playtest is coming up very soon. And I think I'm going to shadow drop the playtest. So I'm not going to tell you when the playtest is going to start for the Patreon version. I'm just going to blast it out. So just to keep you on your toes. But anyway, today we just have some more stuff to do, get the playtest ready. I've got a bunch of little things to address, and yeah, we'll just generally see what's going on here. But before I get into it, I want to remind everyone that Alchemortis is available for wishlisting. So it's a dark fantasy roguelite auto battler where you can create your own builds using alchemy. So if that sounds interesting to you, definitely give it a wish list. I would appreciate that. The Steam page is linked below. You could also join the Patreon. There's a couple of nice perks. If you join the Patreon, not only do you get access to exclusive content on Patreon, but you'll also get access to the playtest. So either of these tiers here will grant you playtest access while you're subscribed. So you have to be an active subscriber to get access to the playtest. And if you subscribe to the sponsored tier for at least 1 month, you will get an Alchemortis Steam key when the game launches, and your name will be placed in the in-game Alchemortis credits. So I'm probably, when we get closer to release, obviously after the game is released, these things will go away. So if you want your name immortalized in Alchemortis, definitely consider subscribing to the sponsor tier. Again, at least 1 month. Of course, I would appreciate if you would consider subscribing for more, but you just need to subscribe for 1 month. So you could go to Patreon, subscribe for 1 month, cancel, and you'll have those two perks there. And you can also purchase my Udemy courses. These help me out a lot as well. So check it out. Those are all linked below. The Discord is also linked below. All that good stuff. 3 minutes late. I'm much later than 3 minutes, that's for sure. Hello, XFC. Welcome. Emerson, welcome back. New record. Straight Pointer, welcome, welcome. Better late than never. Just wanted an excuse to post the Homer graphics interchange format. Well, it works. It works. Good afternoon, Simon William Taylor. I am well. How are you doing? Hello, Malicious Rabbit. Did you ever release who did your capsule art? If you don't want to release the info publicly, then I'd take a DM too. We're starting to look for a capsule artist. Let me follow up on that. I haven't heard back. So the artist is very busy, I'm assuming. Wanting to have some clean art when we do our re-release on Itch in a month or so. And for the Steam page. Yeah, for sure. Can I say that my name is Wave Function Collapse, so you put that in the credits? Yeah, I will be, I will be asking, probably I'll be trying to reach out to everyone who subscribed at that top tier, and I'll be asking how you want to be credited. Because I'm sure there are some people that, would rather put like maybe their real name versus their username, or they'd rather use a username. I'm sure there will be some people that want to remain anonymous. So I'll be trying to reach out to everyone prior to getting that credit set up and asking how you want to be credited. So if you want to be credited as Wave Function Collapse, then I guess that's your prerogative. Hello, Light Tiramisu. Welcome. Good morning. Hello, Clickertail. All right. So what do we got going on? So first, I created a new item yesterday. This was the item that gave me a huge problem with my ability system. So I've got a bunch of actually really cool new things in the game now. So one, I can now support the execution of abilities immediately on combat start. It's a little bit janky to do it, but it does work. So if I go to add item carnivorous plant. So I added this carnivorous plant item called Planta Carnivora, which is just like a Latin translation of carnivorous plant. Oh, I should give this more abilities. Shoot, I guess I'm not done with this guy. I need to add more abilities. So this guy has an innate passive, which is that it copies all of the damage abilities of adjacent allied items, but it also exhausts adjacent allied items on combat start that deal damage. So if I put that there, let's go to the booster. I should set up my debug stuff again. Also, okay. Wait, what the heck? Oh, that's a bug. If window is maximized and settings is canceled, window size gets reset. That should be an easy fix, I think. But anyway, so this carnivorous plant here, I go here. So when I click start, that skeleton warrior gets exhausted automatically, and that gets piped into the combat log as well. So that seems very simple, but I didn't really have a way of executing abilities on combat start prior to that. And the way that I'm doing it now is I have a generic combat start listener in the ability, and then I can just call execute abilities on the card, but this is a little bit tricky too because this is a non-combat ability. This whole ability is wrapped in a non-combat ability, which gives it that passive label and also some other things. So I needed to add a flag for including the non-combat abilities, and then I needed to filter down the ability that I wanted to execute to this conditional ability here, plus whether the ability has the ancestor conditional ability. So this conditional ability decorator plus any descendants of the conditional ability decorator get executed. But then I also needed to store a couple of flags, like is combat started and is exhaust executed, because again, the problem is that this is a non-combat ability, which means that this ability will be executed outside of combat always. And so I needed a way to control it to prevent it from executing during just like the non-combat phase. Anyway, so that's what I've got going on here. And then the other thing that I did is I added the ability of artifacts to execute abilities through the ability pipeline. So for example, this Basilisk Eye, it paralyzes an enemy for 10 seconds on combat start. And previously that was just directly finding a card and just adding a debuff onto the card exactly, but that skips all of the ability tracking and stuff, which means that it wasn't ending up in the combat log. And so I added this execute abilities method to my base artifact class, and this allows me to pass in a list of abilities to execute where all of them will be tracked properly. So the reason that I wanted to do this is not just for the combat log, but the reason that I wanted to do that too is to allow abilities or allow your items to scale with whatever the artifacts are doing as well. So let me think about this. So yeah, that means that, like, let's say that you have an ability that scales off of paralysis applied. The Basilisk Eye will now count towards a paralysis applied, which was not the case before. So it's very important that anytime like an ability is done, it's very important that that's like sort of piped through the ability tracking and ability execution system, because that is the source of truth for all of those types of scalings. Like if your paralysis duration goes up every time paralysis is applied during combat, well then obviously if an artifact applies paralysis, you want that to count, right? Why is this not working? Oh. Ignore the save file there. Hello, Willius. Anything special on the agenda today? Nothing too special, no. Nothing too special. That's how you say it in Portuguese too. Planta carnivora. Nice. Hello, Ninja Link. Good morning. Good to see you. So check this out now. So if I do this and I start combat, I open the combat log, we can see now we have a log for the Basilisk guy. Paralyzed training dummy for 10 seconds. So that's in the history now, which means that, like I said, that can be scaled off of. Now I'm also wondering, so this poison heal artifact, take 25% of maximum health as damage. Every time poison damage is dealt to an enemy, heal 1. I wonder if I should... So here I'm just dealing direct damage. Now I'm wondering if I should construct a damage object. Like this. And then put the damage amount here. Does this automatically calculate the critical chance? Oh, the problem is this assumes a base card. So maybe I don't want to do... Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to think about that, but... So the way that this code has been developing over time is like everything has been morphed into the ability system. So like anytime an effect happens at all, it's generally an ability. Now I'm wondering if I should be dealing direct damage here or if I should be also configuring a damage object like this, new damage, you know, whatever with the damage, and then do execute abilities. With an artifact context. And then the damage here. That doesn't count. Oh, this needs to be an enumerable. I'm gonna have to think about that, actually. Interesting. Yeah, but I think generally speaking, like, everything that does damage or whatever should generally be an ability, because that's just gonna make my life a lot easier. Instead of having like all these different ways of applying damage and abilities and whatnot. I mean, this damage still gets logged in the, like, track damage dealt is done when I call damage here on a board combat component. So it may be okay. So it's going to track the damage dealt. This poison heal will track the damage and healing done, but it just won't log like a damage ability, which I'm not exactly sure if that's going to make any difference, but investigate using abilities anytime damage is dealt, particularly from artifacts. For example, poison heal artifact executes damage and heal instead of calling board combat component directly. Okay, anyway, there was one other thing I was going to show you. Let's see. Do I want to do this? So I was also thinking last night a little bit about reworking the combat log. And Claude actually, is this going to be a good, let's see. Let me just see if I can get this set up. Maybe I'll just take a screenshot of it. Okay, so Claude actually threw together a mock-up. Like I was chatting with Claude, trying to brainstorm how to display the combat log in a nice way. And Claude came up with this, which we can go over in a second here. No, don't. What the heck, man? Okay. Anyway, let me catch up on the chat real quick. Do you find that you like to make games you also like to play, or is there a stark difference between games you like to play and games you like to make? Honestly, yeah, I mean, I'm not really a big player of the kind of games that Alchemortis is, which is kind of fun, kind of weird. Like, if I'm gonna play a game, it's gonna be like probably an online competitive multiplayer game with my friends. Like, Arc Raiders is still one that I play with my friends quite regularly, and then also, you know, if I'm doing something single player, I'll probably play like Elden Ring or something. I'm not really big into playing like indie roguelikes, which is interesting, but I think that's kind of cool. Because then I, like with Alchemortis, I am making a game that would appeal to me in that genre, you know? And also, since I don't play a whole lot of those games... One second, the cat is doing something. Goodness gracious. Yeah, if the game that if I'm making a game in a genre that I don't typically play a whole lot of, then there may be opportunities for me to do something different because I'm not like so entrenched as a fan of that genre, right? So anyway, use a lot of shaders to achieve dynamic moving pixel art effect, which is cool. I've been using light to do something similar. Oh, and the hidden god of effects noise. Yeah, that's true. Hello, Snupbill. Thank you for the IDR 10,000. Appreciate that. Thank you, thank you. Welcome back to the stream. Good to see you. With the message Yummers. Yummers train. That entrance though, yeah. Hello, gamers. What's this screen we're looking at? Hello, Junie. So, this is like a mock-up that Claude did of what a combat log could look like. Obviously, I can't like take any of this code here because it's like a web thing, but I think the presentation is interesting. So it's basically like an ordered list of collapsible elements where you see what goes here, and then you get like a summary of what happened, and you can expand things and you can see, you know, what happened during that group of events. So, and this would be, you know, segmented by time here. So, yeah, I just think it's a little bit interesting. So if I had multiple cards that executed, let's say on like group 8 or whatever, I could expand it and see the list of everything, and then I could also like further expand, right? So it could be like nested groups that are like summarizing everything that happened. And then I can add in extra information to, like, you know, the skeleton warrior buffed. Let's say the skeleton warrior has like a paralysis or whatever. You could say the skeleton warrior paralyzed this guy. Oh, and then I can, like, you know, maybe click on the name of that thing and have it take me to that card, or it could show that card in a tooltip. Like when I hover over skeleton warrior, for example, it could show me the card as well as the tooltip next to the card, so I know which skeleton warrior it was that went. And then it's like in a more clear timeline view where I've got like the time along the combat here, and then I can group similar entries too, right? So if there's a bunch of fire that's happening and that's the only thing that's happening, so this says like 18 old entries here, this could just group all of those similar fire abilities together inside of one group. If it's just, you know, a string of fire damage being dealt, that could just get all grouped together, and then you expand this and you could see each like individual one, right? So yeah. Also yummers. I think what might be more beneficial than a log would be a recap, seeing which cards are performing to make more informed decisions for the run. Yeah, I mean, I mean, this kind of is a recap, right? So like this is a log, but it's, you know, it should be pretty straightforward to go from this view to like, here's a recap of like what did the most. I think yeah, I don't know. Like the combat log is a problem because right now it's just like a straight list of things that are happening. It's hard to know what's going on when. So I do think like a combat log rework is necessary, but it should be relatively easy to distill like a recap from this. So like the recap might also be presented kind of like this, but instead of being grouped by like what happened at what time, it would just be grouped by like item, and then you could expand the item and see everything that it did, right? As a grouped thing. So it applied 500 total fire and it dealt 30 damage total and so on and so forth. Maybe a summary at the end. I think it's harder to grok performance with a log view. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it should be relatively easy to do a summary for sure. The combat log, like this presentation is more useful, I think, for showing like how abilities are interacting with each other. Not sure if this is scope creep, but I think graphs would be nice. See damage dealt over time and can filter by damage type or item. Yeah, a graph would be nice. Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of ways to display this. I think this is one of those things that can be iterated on as well. I think my main goal is like to get the combat log to be more readable and more like parsable first. And then like, you know, improvements to the combat log, they don't even necessarily like, the combat log doesn't need to be perfect at release, I don't think. That's one of those things that I can follow up with like extending its functionality or its usefulness post-release. That doesn't mean I'm not gonna like, you know, that doesn't mean that it's gonna be terrible on release, but I just mean like it's one of those things that doesn't need to be perfect, right? Because it doesn't really affect the gameplay. It's more like a nice to have feature that is for player information. And a lot of you who have already played the playtest, you know, you've obviously given me feedback about the combat log, but a lot of you have been successful in creating builds even with the limited combat log that exists now. So I don't know if I want to spend a whole lot of time like making the combat log perfect, but making it more useful would certainly be a good priority. So yeah, once this next playtest is released, I think what I'm going to do is just like nail down the big milestones that I need to hit prior to release. Because I was thinking about it, like, if I want to release before the end of the year, that gives me like 5 or 6 months to finish the game. So I kind of need to lock in as the kids would say, and like figure out what absolutely needs to be done within the next, you know, certain period of time. Anyway, let's add some more abilities to the carnivorous plant. Maybe lifesteal? Easy, boom, done, lifesteal. What other abilities do we have? What could we do with the plant? I think I might do something like reduce the remaining cooldown of this item by 0 seconds whenever an allied item deals damage. Yes, I want to do that. Basically copy the ancient tree here. Damage dealt tracker. What? Oh, I think this is wrong. I might actually pull this. Maybe I'll pull this out into my ability builder. Public static composed ability cooldown reduction on damage dealt. Okay, magnitude to seconds. So we'll do damage type. Damage type. Let me see something as well. Oh, goodness. Trying to see if I already have damage type to keyword or something. Okay. I guess let's just do this. This would be damage type to keyword. Fire. What if they fix this? One, two, three, four, five, six. I think I'm missing necrotic here. Okay, so damage type to keyword, get ability type, keyword, string, public, static, string. Now I gotta turn this off. So I figured out that Copilot is like clobbering my IntelliSense for some reason. To keyword string. Okay, anyway, so we got the damage type here, int magnitude. So damage type is equal to damage type here. Oh, shoot. Let's just do this. Action. Set that to null by default. Dot invoke query target provider. Okay, so now we want to do the description translation key. So var description translation key is equal to ability cooldown reduction on damage, and then we'll do description utils dot damage type to keyword string damage type, and then let's do dot replace. That's a little bit messy, but that's all right. So this would be magnitude to seconds, current magnitude. Whenever an allied item deals. This would be description utils. So actually we could store this keyword here. This also needs to be keyword to upper invariant. Okay, and then we can put keyword here. Did I do it correctly? Nope. Okay, so now for the ancient tree, ability builder dot cooldown reduction on damage dealt, damage type dot physical, int magnitude is 1, configure. Okay, so we get rid of this now. And then I can copy this one. And it'll just be the same ability. All right, let's see what happens. Any tips for starting out? Sorry in advance if you get this question a lot. Yeah, I mean, it depends on where you are in terms of your experience. But if you're brand new to game development and you don't have any programming experience at all, then I would take a look at some beginner-friendly tutorials or courses on YouTube. It may be useful to just do like a programming crash course, generally speaking, too, because programming concepts are going to be the same regardless of what language you're using. So if you don't have any fundamental programming knowledge, then it may be a good idea to get some of that first. And there's all kinds of resources on YouTube and other places like introductions to programming, so on and so forth. You know, only take an hour or two to like get introduced to it at least. And then for actually getting into the game development side of things, I think a good place to start is reading the documentation for whatever engine you're using. So Godot, for example, has a lot of tutorials and like getting started guides and whatnot. There's also plenty of resources on YouTube for that. And then once you've kind of like figured out your way around the engine and once you've got a little bit of code understanding, I think the way to do it after that is just to like kind of trial by fire, is like try to build something on your own and then, you know, let yourself get stuck on problems, let yourself try to work through problems first. And then if you get really stuck, you can go and look up, you know, how to do the specific thing that you're trying to do. But yeah, I think you just need to get started, and like you're going to have a bunch of problems and it's going to be overwhelming at first, and you just got to try to take it one small step at a time. Just get like little victories. Okay, let's see what happens. Godot has an asset store now? That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, it does. I want to try something here. Let's see. Okay. So this should be dealing should be dealing 2 true damage 3 times. And then this should be resetting its cooldown, reducing the remaining cooldown by 0.3 every time that happens. plus all the skeletons. So let's see. I can't actually tell if that's working. Oh, this needs to, okay. I'll worry about that in a second. Attach to process. Godot. Okay, so let's see. I should see that breakpoint hit twice. That's once, twice, and then twice again, once, twice. Oh, it's adding that for its own damage as well. Oh, hello. I think it's triggering on its own damage being dealt as well, but that's okay. I'm going to put this on the other screen so I can actually see it. Why is this not working? Hold on a second. This is so annoying. I can't move this window. Okay, so we're on the skeleton commander executing. So that's 1, 2, 3. It did it 4 times? Anyway, I need to do this. This needs to execute for each magnitude. I'm going to make sure to filter out damage done by the card that's actually listening. Okay, that should work. Let's give that a shot. I can make it really obvious, like I could change the magnitude here. Because it's 0.1 seconds, so you can't really see it, and it's a 12-second cooldown. What happens if I do, let's just change this magnitude to 10. I just want to see if this is working as expected. Yeah. Seems to be working. Yeah. Okay, we'll turn that back down to 1. Cool beans. All right, we can call that good now. That took a little bit longer than I wanted it to, but that's all right. Add more abilities to carnivorous plant. I was thinking about also, it would be kind of fun to take that carnivorous plant and make it also a reagent. Like, I don't have any items in the game right now that are like combat items, but could also serve as reagents. So it would be kind of cool to have an ability or a card like that, like make the carnivorous plant like a very strong combat item, but then also give it like some kind of reagent capability. I think that'd be kind of cool. The problem with that though is that reagent items are consumed in alchemy, so it would not be possible to do alchemy as it stands, but I could do something on the carnivorous plant where like it doesn't get, so it could be marked as a reagent, then I could make it so that it doesn't get consumed by alchemy, and then it has like this persistent like reagent effect on it too. So you could just keep throwing it into alchemy and like buffing items or whatever with it. That'd be kind of cool. Maybe I'll do that. That would be very interesting. Explore adding reagent capability. Okay, anyway, we do need to look at the tutorial. Make version text go out, secondary tags and dividers. Let's fix this one. So if I go to here, turn off ignore save file, ignore unlocks, turn off skip menu, clear save data. Slightly similar to that skeleton giant I suggested a couple weeks ago. Yeah, I don't remember exactly what the suggestion was, so I'll have to take a look at it again. I need to go back through the suggestions channel and like start creating some of those items. So the secondary card tags are showing up here, and there's also these dividers that are showing up. I also added more unlock conditions last night, so we've got some interesting ones like unlocked by winning a run with at least 10 artifacts, unlocked by reaching 500 poison stacks in one combat encounter, unlocked by dealing 10,000 damage, and then I added a couple more for artifacts as well. Unlocked by reaching 500 fire stacks in a single combat encounter, unlocked by healing 5,000 in a single run. So yeah. Hopefully that's, more interesting. A little bit more for you to do for the playtest. Anyway, I'm going to take a quick 3-minute break, and when I come back, we'll just start working on these bugs. We need to take a look at the tutorial as well and make sure that's still good. See if I can make any improvements to that. But anyway, what was the... Oh, shoot. Dang. I had an idea last night for like a card ability, I think, that I don't remember now. Anyway, I'll be right back in 3 minutes and we'll continue on. All right, I'm back. I was AFK when you were talking about the combat log. My biggest wishlist item for that thing is the ability to filter by enemy versus player and by type. Okay. Yeah, we'll see. That should be doable. I think I have all the information I need to display. To display the information, but yeah, we'll see. I think like I'm recording everything in the history properly. Okay, anyway, secondary tags and dividers are showing in the unlock menu. Horizontal 1, horizontal 2. Well, let's see. Unlocks. Yeah, I wonder why that's still... Maybe I just need to check for the visibility of the scroll container as well. Oh yeah, that works. Okay, we fixed it. Now I should probably make sure that the normal tooltip still works. Yep, okay. Cool. All right. So fix locked card tooltip. Secondary tag panel. Actually, am I resetting this to visible? Yeah. Here, that's done. Okay, let's try the tutorial now. Had an idea for the obelisk events for booster shops, the ability to guarantee small, medium, or large cards in that event. Oh, that's a good one. That is a good one. I can't bring up the options menu here. Settings. I gotta redo that whole settings menu eventually. Items. Yeah. Yep. Better use the right terminology. Let me do something. I can't really get a good sense for if this tutorial is correct still with the debug options in place. So I will just turn this off. We can skip the menu, I think. Okay. Let's do clear save data again. So the tutorial text is, I don't know if you can see this, but there's a little line up there. I don't know why that's happening. Tutorial guide. Oh. Okay. Yeah, so this should not be visible. Can I just set rich text label.visible equals false here? Let's see if that works. I think I need to redo this tutorial anyway, but I'm just gonna try to make it feel relatively nice for the playtest at least. So we go here. When will I get another tutorial pop up? Let's see. I think after I visit this booster. All right. Maybe not. Oh, you know what? Sorry, I keep having to redo this. Clearing the save data doesn't clear the options data, and the options data is where the tutorial completed states are. So the reason I wasn't seeing another state is because I had already cleared that state in the prior run that I did. So I'll just delete those and try again. Oops. Ignore save file. The Inquisition is aware of your dark presence. Gather power to challenge them. Okay. Oh, it's going to change the combat encounter. Oh, it changed it to a grill board event. Dang. I forgot that obelisks can still do that. Oh, man. I don't know if I should leave that in there or not. Drag items onto your board to prepare them for combat. Click the start button. Okay. I need a tutorial thing for this screen now. So, okay. I fixed this one. So I need to explain new resurrection event. I don't have any resurrection stones. Wait. How do I not have any resurrection stones? Why am I spawning in with 0 resurrection stones? Now I gotta look at this one. Goodness gracious. If is skip menu disabled, default run config, initialize, load current run. This should be the default run config. Run config difficulty tier, load steps in exact order, load currency. Oh, do I have the difficulty tiers turned up? Yeah, okay, that's why. There's a difficulty tier in the game that reduces the starting resurrection stone count. Okay. Okay, drag items into your board to prepare for combat. Items will execute their ability when their turn. So I want to remove turn language. Click the start combat button to commence battle. All right. You've defeated some of the Inquisition's forces, claim your treasure and press forward. Okay. Now that we have some items, we can commence alchemization. Open your inventory. To alchemize items, add 2 or more items to the pot. Click the pot to commence alchemization. So yeah, the alchemy isn't really explained that well. So add note about corruption. So I need this resurrection here. Okay, so I think I have enough to work with to fix this at least. Okay. Items will execute when their remaining cooldown reaches 0. Okay. I'll just rename it to start button. Now that you have some items, we can commence alchemization. Gain blood by... Why is this not happening? Oh yeah, this is not happening because I have... I have blood already. Um, connect to cards sold. So I think I can just connect to on card sold there, and then I can put that condition in here. How do I want to put this? Something like that. I don't know. This doesn't really explain. I don't know. I think the alchemy probably just needs to be explained more, but I don't really have time to redo the whole tutorial thing for this playtest. This also needs to be translated too, so I know this is probably way out of scope, but at this point I've been playing Oaken Tower a lot lately. I was wondering if something like the items upgrade mechanic would work in Alchemortis as well. In Oaken Tower, you upgrade items with duplicates of the same kind, combine two to get one of a higher level. No, you have your own upgrade mechanic right now, but it made me think of that when I played. Yeah, I was thinking... that could be like an artifact. For sure. The problem, well, let me think about this. The problem in my game is like, what abilities do you take over? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that would actually work. Yeah, if you put two of the same item into alchemy, it could upgrade one and consume the other, but the problem is, like, which item gets consumed, you know? Hello, Mel's, welcome. Look, you must be quite familiar with Godot because when I use Godot, I can't edit code outside its built-in IDE. Oh, interesting. Why is that? Alchemortis, they usually sell duplicates of cards, large ones in particular, because there's no space in the border inventory for 3 2x2 cards, for example. Getting a duplicate of a large card feels like a waste when your inventory is full. Sorry for the wall of text. Yeah, and this is one of those things too where it's like that will probably become less of an issue when there's like 100 more items in the game, right? Like that is a very frequent occurrence right now in the current version of the game. But when I hit my target item count of like 300 player items, that should hopefully happen a lot less, right? And that doesn't mean that it fixes the problem, but it means that, you know, it may not be that big of a deal anymore, you know what I mean? Now, if I could introduce an artifact that does something with duplicates, that would be cool. Upgrade. Yeah, I don't know. Hello, Ashwin. Welcome, welcome. Also, I had another artifact idea. Allow items to be upgraded beyond the tier 5 cap. Gosh, I was laying in bed last night and I had this really cool idea as I was falling asleep, and now I don't remember it. I wish I could remember it. It's bothering me. Something about damage. Oh, no, wait. Oh, yeah, I remember it. I remembered it. Change Primeval hand to consume 1 to deal 1 damage and increase status stack. Okay. I remembered it. So the Primeval hand right now is just an artifact that has a 50% chance to increase the status stacks of any status you apply. That is not very interesting because it's basically just a straight buff, but it only happens sometimes. So I'm going to change the Primeval hand such that it will increase the status stacks applied by 1, or whatever number. Maybe 1 is not the proper balance, but it will increase the status stacks of any status applied, and then it will deal 1 damage to you. So it's like you're sacrificing health to increase your status stack application potential. That is, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just remembered it. I can't believe that. I'm so happy. Okay, all right. I was literally like 10 minutes away, 5 minutes away from falling asleep, and I had this idea. Okay, all right. I'm so happy. Yes. And now it's been immortalized in my obsidian board. Okay, very cool. Anyway. You have to tell Godot to use an external editor and install the Godot plugin in VS Code. Yeah, that's true. Hello, Doc Rockman. Just wanted to say I'm a 9-year software dev feeling unfulfilled at work by AI, and you've reinvigorated my personal project passion and got me excited to game dev. Thank you, brother. Oh, you're welcome. Glad to hear that. And welcome to the stream. Great to have you here. I was I got out of my software job like right when AI started to become adopted across like the software engineer world. So I have no idea what's going on currently in that whole thing, but I did use AI to great effect in some of my work, but I can't imagine how crazy it is now. There could be a whole secondary upgrade system where you put 2 cards of the same kind together to get a better version and an artifact that makes cards of the ones you already have appear in packs. I vote you keep Primeval hand. Yeah, so about the upgrade thing. Yeah, the problem is like, if I'm gonna have 2 duplicate cards do an upgrade, it either has to be non-destructive, which makes it so that the way that's going to be like a huge buff, right? So if I just say, oh, we'll just upgrade both duplicates, it's like, well, now it's just like, just collect as many duplicates as you can, right? And if I make it consume, like it could just upgrade the tier of an item, then it becomes a difficult, like, how do you determine which item to consume? Because if it just consumes one randomly, it may consume the item that you've crafted to be like super powerful. So that's why I'm thinking like the artifact could instead like apply some minor buffs to some duplicates, right? So it could be like if you have, you know, more than one of the same item on the board, then it like gives it an extra ability like Echo or something. That might work. It could also be something very minor like, hey, if you have multiple of the same item on your board, just all of those copies gain like 5 blood sell price, right? So you actually get more out of selling them. Yeah, something like that. Or it could be for future applications, right? So it could be whenever you loot an item that you already have, maybe it drops at a higher tier guaranteed and it has all of its abilities cleared, so you can like, you know, you could take your existed crafted item and basically just merge it over onto the new one. Something like that. I think I have to come up with a more clever way of doing that. And as far as a Primeval hand, no, I don't really like these artifact designs, which are like straight buffs without any like context or like risk reward to them. I mean, there are some like that, like the telescope. Oh, this is another thing I thought of. Like the telescope is just a straight buff because it lets you see farther, but it's also not like a combat buff. So it's just kind of like, it's not that impactful. Things like the sapling, which just give you an extra reagent, like that's just a straight buff. But when it comes to like the combat items, I want there to be some kind of like minor downside that you have to consider, that you have to contend with. Because if the artifact is just a straight buff, the problem that ends up occurring is that it just becomes the obvious choice, right? Like, oh, this is literally a straight buff. It doesn't do anything other than buff me. So why would I not take that one over something else, right? Been lurking for a few weeks, bought the course last week, just need time to get started. Awesome, thank you, appreciate that. It's so silly that we as software developers are working ourselves out of a job. Yeah, we'll see. Does vibe coding stuff like shaders or effects count as AI art and stuff like Steam tags? No, does not. Steam clarified their guidance and said using AI tools for like writing code and stuff does not, that's not what they're looking for. What they're looking for is AI generated content that is player facing. And I don't think a shader is technically that, in the same way that like if you vibe coded the tween animation, right? Would that count as like AI generated art? Like, no, it's describing functionality that to display something, animate something in the way that you want to. And I think the same would be true of shaders, right? It's like the AI is not generating the visual. The AI is generating the code that powers the visuals, right? Steam is more interested in like, are you just using AI generated textures, sounds, dialogue, 3D models, like that kind of thing. And they recently clarified that too. I'm just getting pressured to let AI do some of the fun coding parts and sometimes even planning stuff. I'm basically becoming a project manager telling a junior dev what to do. Yeah, that doesn't sound too fun. Like, I think, you know, if I was still a software engineer, I would definitely be using AI for the things that weren't fun to do. Database migrations and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, like there are parts where it's like I wanna design the system and I want to build it, right? I don't know. I think it's one of those things where, in my impression, is that it kind of put the cart before the horse. Like everyone jumped onto the AI bandwagon before thinking carefully about like what the consequences might be. And you know, now you're hearing all these kinds of like news things like, you know, Windows is breaking and like all these Windows features are breaking after they made a big deal about like vibe coding a bunch of their stuff. And it's like, I think there's going to be a little bit of a pullback in the future where it's like, okay, well, we probably shouldn't be like doing 100% of this as AI because we lose the domain knowledge. And the problem with modern LLMs too right now is that they can't retain a big enough context, and so you need to do like all these workarounds to like give them as much context as possible without like filling up the context window too much. And then there's all kinds of like business knowledge that's just contained within the minds of people. Like in a business, it's impossible to document 100% of everything about the business in text. That's just not possible. Like some aspects of how the business works and why certain decisions were made are just part of the domain knowledge of the people, right? So I think AI, like vibe coding stuff for like a software engineer job, is good for doing like the really rote things. Like you need to build an API endpoint and the database table already exists and you basically just need to write the query for it and write the service method for your backend service and the API endpoint with auth and everything. Like that's all rote. Every software engineer with experience has done that a million times, and so it's just like dead boring, right? That kind of thing could be really useful to do AI with. But yeah, when you're trying to like make fundamental changes or new features, like that requires more careful planning and more careful consideration than just like sticking the AI at it and being like, make this for me. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Well, welcome, Vast3394. You're on WYYC 1900.05 FM. And you have 30 seconds to state your message, and then we're going to go into a 5-minute ad break. Artifact idea. You now have the option to sacrifice combat rewards. The third time you do this, gain... Sorry. Vast says, play Freebird. You have the option to sacrifice combat rewards. The third time you do this, gain a random artifact that you do not already have. That's a cool one. Hello, Jack at Daytona. I wrote long-time lurker, first-time chatter, but deleted it because the message was too long. I took up the mantle. Which plugin are you using to create the board? Kanban with the Obsidian, or it's Obsidian with the Kanban plugin. Welcome, Tran Trung Thang. I hope I said your name correctly. How did you learn about game balancing and pacing? That is something that I'm still learning about. I don't really know how to learn that other than just like doing it. That's why the playtests are super important, right? Because it's really hard for me, being so close to the project, to understand like what the new player experience is like and like how the pacing is and whether the decisions that you make moment to moment are interesting. So a lot of it is I'm just relying on your feedback, like the playtest. I'm relying on people telling me like the problems that they have with the game so that I can go and address it. But yeah, I think, balancing and pacing is one of those things where it's like, it feels like that's more of an art than a science. Like even games like, so I was a big League of Legends player, right? And they make a big deal about like asymmetric balancing in that game, right? Which is that it's not just a matter of taking every champion in the game, putting their abilities into a spreadsheet and then calculating their theoretical DPS and then making sure that everyone's on an even playing field, right? In that game, the asymmetric balancing is more of like, we want to make champions have very obvious strengths and very obvious weaknesses where they feel OP when they're used in the right circumstance with the right team composition and everything, and then they feel weak or weaker when those things are not in their favor, right? And so I think it becomes more of like an art than a science. And of course, like some data can help, but the problem is balancing needs to serve like making the game fun for the player rather than satisfying like some kind of scientific need to like make all the numbers equal, right? So that's the tricky part about it. Anything about programming, but I think vibe coding is dumb. Shader code is still code, yeah. Hello, iHusky, welcome. Isn't that just stunting your growth? Yes, you do have to be careful about that, yeah. You don't want to let the AI do a bunch of stuff to your code that you're not understanding. What would you consider to be a straight buff? To me, even things like the weapon artifact that grants echo if you only have weapons as a straight buff. There are lots of those in the game. I wouldn't say that's a straight buff, right? Because that requires you to build in a certain way. So a straight buff is basically any item that you can grab that would basically require no action on your part to make you stronger, right? That's kind of what I'm considering a straight buff. So like if I had an artifact that's like, oh, you just gain 25 max health on picking this up. Well, that's just a straight buff, right? There's no, it works with every build, basically. You don't have to do anything special to get the power out of the artifact. You just pick it up and there you go, right? Tech should be for the people. Cart before the horse is 100% right. It'll get more expensive than just having a person do it once it's good enough, but 100% place a person to 100% replace a person, but unsure if it'll be too late for some of these companies. Yeah. Do I use hair conditioner? I don't know. I use like, you know, like the meme where it's like men's hair shampoo is like 22 in 1. You know, it's like shampoo, conditioner, deodorant, motor oil. I don't know. It's just like a random brand. Anyway, back to work to the overlords. All right, thanks for stopping by, and hope to see you in the next one. Global signal ad break.emit. Yeah. Is it possible in the game to combine 2 of the same card into 1 with a very small boost to the stats of the card? That's what Wooius was suggesting. I mean, it's possible. Like, I just don't know if that's going to... I don't know how to get that to work in an interesting way. That's the only thing. Really love Godot. It makes it so easy to make games. Yeah, I do too. Always felt Unity was so obtuse whenever I tried to learn. There's a bird on my window. I don't really have any experience with anything. I came from Game Maker when I started using Godot, and the difference between Game Maker and Godot is like night and day. It's like Godot, I just immediately knew that Godot was so much better, in my opinion. You're welcome, Bushy Dragon. Shader art in Godot, how are you learning it? Yeah, shaders are one of those things that I use the AI for quite frequently, because like it's so hard to get a shader to do what you want, because there's just so much like math involved and thinking about like the UVs and, you know, the fragment, like what the color of individual shader should be. I mean, I can write shaders, but it usually takes me like several hours just to get like a basic shader working. So I tend to use the LLMs for shaders quite a bit. I did like one tutorial in Game Maker and felt so limiting. I knew I wanted more, so I went Godot. Yeah. Okay, so that's done. That's done, I think. So I need to do the new resurrection event now. Enter state resurrection. This one happens... is resurrecting. Is this not done anymore? State player died. So enter state resurrection. Resurrection stone container. Right. So this one is wrong. You may resurrect by spending... Okay. Wait, how am I gonna get the resurrection container? So this is not valid anymore. Owner, board.owner as resurrection stone container. I need to get... Honestly, you know what I might do is I might just add this to a group. Tutorial resurrection receptacle. So tutorial resurrection receptacle, we'll copy that group name. Private static read only string name, resurrection receptacle group name. Okay. Bar resurrection control is equal to get tree, get first node in group as a clickable control. Resurrection receptacle group name. If resurrection control is equal to null, we'll just return. Resurrection control. Okay, let's see if that works. There's not a lot of resources on shaders. Yeah, shaders are just very hard generally. Not a whole lot of resources. It's very hard to develop the skill to do them correctly. And even when you do have the skill, they take a long time to write. They're also not very easy to iterate on. Like, I find that when I'm making shaders, I have to like keep running the game to see what they look like in game. I mean, you have a little shader preview on your Godot material, but oftentimes that's like not helpful at all. So they're just a huge pain in the rear. Maybe visual shaders would be good in that regard, but I don't have much experience with the visual shaders either. Unity obtuse, yes. Bloated, yes. Still trying to understand arrays. You could have a reagent that combines two identical items together and raises them. The item level by 1. Could have additional argument that tells you which abilities will be put on the final item. Yeah, that could work. Shader code in the same way you play around with other code. I've also seen good tutorials. It's just GLSL after all. Whatever item the reagent is adjacent to will maintain all of its abilities and the other item will be destroyed. That's a good one. Hello, Claymore Dev. You're the only other person I've seen so far who also uses a left side only Godot layout. Yeah. I think it's nice. The main reason I do this is because I think the Godot default layout is it has the scene tree over here and the inspector over here. But that never made much sense to me because, like, if I want to assign a texture to this sprite, like, I could just go to my assets here, take this, and just drag that over. Like, I don't have to go across the whole screen. You know what I mean? And, like, whatever's happening in here is usually not that important. I mean, it's important for the scene layout, but I'm doing most of my work is, like, grabbing assets from here and, like, manipulating the scene tree. So, yeah, this layout just makes more sense to me. Shaders are wizardry, but arrays are just a list with an index starting usually at 0. So 5 items would be 0 to 4. Yeah. Okay. I'm trying to die. I'm trying to die so I can see if this works. Okay. So resurrection finished. On event resurrection finish. State player resurrected. Let's put is resurrecting here. Oh, wait a minute. Let's see here. The timing is a little bit off, but I also don't know if I want to spend a whole lot of time adding a bunch of signals to the code to get the timing to work. I don't even drag, just load them through code. Yeah, that works too. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to do it. Hello, Mark. Welcome, welcome. Good to see you again. Diego Schramm, welcome. I also use that layout for the exact same reason. I have an ultra-wide monitor and dragging them from one side to the other is way too far. Yeah, that is, I could see how that would be painful. I more struggle with knowing how to implement them or like use them effectively in the right syntax in Godot, but I'm really amateur. Yeah, it's one of those things where like you'll get a feel for it with experience. If you do it enough, it'll just become second nature. Like you won't have to think that hard about like when you need to use an array or not. Okay. I think that's probably fine. So fix that one. What else do I need to fix? Defeated some of the Inquisition's forces. Now that you have some items, open your inventory. Alchemy requires blood. Gain blood by dragging an item to your cell board or defeating enemies. To alchemize items, add 2 or more items to the pot. Alchemy will randomize the abilities on each input item. Items have a chance to gain corrupted abilities if you put too few items in the pot. Click the pot to commence alchemization. All right. Well, I think the tutorial is at least a little bit better now. It cleaned up some language, changed that resurrection state. The tutorial is probably one of those things that I'm going to have to redo again, because it's not that great, but that's all right. Alchemy requires blood. Gain blood by dragging an item to your cell board or defeating enemies. Oh. Yeah, that didn't work. Card sold. Oh, well, that's never emitted. That would be the problem. Okay. Right now I'm struggling with making overlapping objects selectable. I guess Godot doesn't have a built-in way to do this. Oh, like in your game? Yeah, mouse input handling is one of those things that's like really difficult, actually. It's more difficult than is reasonable in a lot of cases. A lot of the difficulty comes too from the fact that like there's just a very specific like order of operations in terms of like the mouse input events and how the controls receive and pass the mouse input events and stuff. So a lot of it is just like you have to have somewhat of an intimate knowledge of how that system, that input handling system works. Because I remember like when I first started using Godot and I'm doing like UIs and stuff, always being confused about like, where are my events going? Like, why is this intercepting the event in this way? And why is this one not passing the event, and so on and so forth. That corruption chance may be a little bit too high, or maybe not though. I don't know, we'll see. Experience really is key for stuff like this, so anyone struggling, just keep on writing code, yeah. All right, I think the tutorial is fine for now. We'll just call that good. I kind of want to do this one. Yesterday, I didn't have internet all day. I was bored. Oh my gosh. That is terrible. I remember when I was a teenager, we moved houses and my parents didn't coordinate the internet setup properly. So we went a week without internet, and like, let me tell you what, as like a 16-year-old boy, having no internet for a week was like the worst torture imaginable. I decided to start working on a game that wrote the logic for chess so the pieces could move. Honestly, I didn't even know I could do something. Thought chess was hard to program, but it's easier than it looks. Oh, very cool. Very nice. Hello, Alexander. First time chatter. What made you choose C# over GDScript? I just like the structure that C# gives me, the type safety, the structure. Having things like link and NuGet packages is super good, so. I'm really weird, I feel. If I change the default, it's wrong. I have nightmares about learning how that thing worked. I have a bit of a dilemma. Is it better for an RPG to be point and click to save time of making so many pixel sprites? Or should I commit to it but risk burning out? It's like a visual novel with combat kind of RPG, where you go from room to room in a facility to kill anomalies and place them back to their cages. I mean, that's up to you. If you're concerned about having a lot of art effort to do, and that concern is like you're not going to be able to finish the game. Like, I'm a big fan of like try to do as much as you can with as little as possible. So yeah, I would say like if you think that doing the point and click is going to be better, more efficient, then I would say do that, you know. That's going to change how your game plays, obviously, but you can make it interesting. Like, I think like constraints are actually a big deal. If you adopt constraints for yourself and you say, okay, like for me in Alchemortis, right, I'm not allowed to do frame by frame animation, even when it would be easier to do that. But adopting that constraint and saying I'm not allowed to do frame animation, all of my animation has to be done with shaders and particles and like tweens and animation players. What that does is that gives the game a very distinct and like focused visual style, right? I'm not mixing and matching a bunch of different animation techniques. It's like very, very consistent, which is a huge deal, right? But it also causes you to think like creatively about how to present certain things. So I would say like, yeah, if you're worried about the art effort being too high, then yeah, make it point and click and then try to like squeeze as much out of that as possible. Like just dedicate yourself to like mouse interaction only and then see what happens, right? Like rigidly adhere to that constraint and you'll be forced to think creatively in certain situations. Like you have to think outside the box. Like how do I do point and click combat, right? That's going to be a whole problem that you solve around that constraint, which could create something more interesting than if you had just like done the generic route of like, well, just draw the sprites and like have typical combat presentation, right? Solo deving is hard. Makes Toby Fox even more impressive, yeah. How do you display our comments on the screen? It's an app called Social Stream Ninja. It basically listens for all of your chats from various streaming apps and then merges them into one chat, and then you can put a little doc in OBS to just highlight the message. And there's like a browser source that you put in OBS with the URL that Social Stream Ninja gives you, and then when you click on a message, it triggers that browser source to put your message on screen. The combat is turn-based, no problem with RPG Maker. The amount of sprites to draw kind of scrambles my mind. All right, tell you what, I'm going to take another quick 3-minute break. When I come back, we're going to change this Primeval hand, and yeah, we'll go from there. So BRB in just 3 minutes. All right, I'm back. Okay. Change Primeval hand to deal 1 damage and increase status stack. Let's do it. What did I call it? Oh, it's called Skeletal Hand. Okay. Anytime poison, fire, or armor is applied by an allied item, take 1 damage. Well, let's change this to be string format. Take 1 damage and increase Okay, so there's a Primeval hand description. Skeletal hand. Okay. Fire, shield, poison, bleed. I think that's right. Card equals context by card. Okay, so artifact context. I hope this works. Initiator board. So our player board is equal to this. Player board is equal to null or not player board dot board inventory component that has card. Okay. Player board dot board combat component dot damage new damage context. Oops. I'm just going to look at my poison heal. Initiator board. I guess that needs to be null. Damage type physical, damage amount 1. Turn context, there we go. Okay, so let's do this now. Private const int stack buff, stack amount increase, I guess we'll call it. Private const int damage taken. Okay, so then we need to do public override description template parameters. Which one was first? The damage and then the stacks applied. So this would be damage taken and then stack amount increase. Alrighty, let's see if that works. Test player artifacts. We'll get rid of this one. Skeletal hand. And then let's just make sure enable test player cards. Let's do a frog. There's 12 sprites for just one character walk animation. Goodness. That's quite a lot. Oh, I don't have my Primeval hand. Enable test player artifacts. Here we go. Man, I don't know, 7 TV extension totally destroys the chat box on Twitch. 7 TV, I don't know what that is, but welcome GLNO, welcome, welcome. Oh, I forgot to rebuild the translations. Anytime poison, bleed, fire, or armor is applied by an allied item, take 1 damage and increase the amount of stacks applied by 1. So this frog should be applying 3 poison then, and I should take damage in accordance with that. Also, the pixel art for the sprites looks eh. I'm not confident in how it looks. Yeah, that happens. Art is hard. Hello, Rookie Tookie. Welcome back. All right, let's see. Come on, frog. So I should take 1 damage. Uh-oh. We have an error. Turn context, current history. Is there no turn context here? Modify apply status context. Apply status. The turn context is here. Let's put a breakpoint. Let's also turn on the training dummy so this is easier. Okay. Let's take a look at why this data is not here. Okay, turn context is null. How is that possible? The turn context is here. Modify apply status context. Create. Oh, it doesn't have the turn context in there. Base artifact, artifact context. Wait a minute. Okay. So it's not passing the turn context along, which is fine. I'm going to change this. This should be a record. That's probably going to break a lot of stuff. Is it going to break a lot of stuff? Okay. Create artifact context. Let's also have a turn context. Turn context, we'll set it to null by default. This would be context.turnContext there. Modify apply status context. So go to the skeletal hand. Is that it? Any other places where that would be an issue? Let's change this to init only. This actually doesn't need to be set, so I don't know why that's there, but that's okay. So this handler, this actually needs to return oops. If result.is handled, this might be, never mind. All right. I think I went a little gung-ho. I'm not going to do that. I don't think I need to do any of that. Let's just change this back to... We'll keep it as a record. Anyway, this should fix it. I don't want to make it a whole context object because then I got to return the context out of all those handlers and like, oh. No, I don't want to do that. Okay. Let's see if this works now. The core issue is that turn context was not being done. There we go. So that's working. So you can see that the player board took 1 damage, the frog applied 3 poison. So it's only got 2 poison. It's being increased by 1 and the player board's taking 1 damage. If I add artifact skeletal hand, now it should be doing 5 poison and 2 damage. Or no, sorry, 4 poison. Yeah, that's right. Okay. So that should be easy enough to counteract, but it's just a little bit of a downside there. Okay. Cool. That one's good. Oops. Looks like a pixel Roblox default avatar. In the chess game, I tried to preload a texture for a chess piece. The problem is that I was doing it using the match in the piece's name. How can I load the texture in a single line? So what I usually do if I'm trying to dynamically load textures into the game at runtime, what I try to do is I try to use the file system as like a database of sorts. So for instance, I could, for any item that I have, let's see. So let's say I've got this abomination, right? This is a very consistent path, right? So the abomination resource is always called abomination. That's its ID. So this ID is like how it gets identified throughout the system, right? And then I have my my directory structure set up such that if I want to know where to find the abomination art, all I need to do is know the ID. So I know that there's ID abomination, which means that I know that the art is going to be under assets, card, abomination, and then it's called abomination.png, right? So you see this ID is present here as the folder name. It's also present as the art name, and it's also present as the custom resource name. So I like to use the file system as like a database where like it's when you have the ID of something, you automatically know like where all of the other parts are. Like I know where to find the abomination custom resource because it will always be at resources card abomination.tres, right? I know where the art is because it's always at this location. So if you're trying to dynamically load a texture in, it helps if you have a very structured and predictable file system where you just need to know like what the ID of the item is, and then you can just go and load that image from that location, right? So I think that's very useful to do. And the same thing happens a lot of times with my scripts too. Like I know the abomination script is always going to be at scripts data card abomination. See, it's just a Pascal name instead of a snake case name. So with one ID, with just the string, I know where to find the script, I know where to find the art, and I know where to find the resource that defines it. Because it's all very predictable, right? Tells me it has to be a constant string. Yeah, preload cannot accept variables. So the reason why it's saying it has to be a constant string, it basically needs to be the string is defined ahead of time. if you want to load something with a variable, you have to use load. You can't use preload. Is it poison a built-in feature? No, that's just the way that I've defined the keywords that need to be highlighted. So anytime I see a word wrapped in double curly braces, that indicates to my highlighting system that that is a keyword that needs to be replaced. So basically, when it says poison up in this tooltip here, it's finding that double curly brace poison, and then it's replacing it with BB code that inserts the poison icon as well as changing the color of the string. But that all happens in my description utils highlight keywords here. So there's like a regular expression match that goes in, and then it replaces the BB code through a series of operations, which is not super useful to go into. But no, that's custom built stuff. What is your personal favorite artifact you've made so far? That's a good question. Let's take a look. Hello, O Pacheco Studio. Welcome back. Good to see you. So let's take a look at the artifacts here. Honestly, I think the monolith is my favorite one, just because it's so interesting. So this monolith here, this adds an immovable item to your board. So I can actually add it. Add artifact monolith. So when you acquire that monolith, it adds a random, it adds an immovable monolith to a random spot in your board, and it literally cannot be moved. Like, it's just stuck there. Which I think is pretty cool. And then of course it provides pretty significant buffs to anything that's adjacent to it. That's probably my favorite one, just because it's so interesting. Like, it's just like, there is nothing else in the game that is not movable like this. And it's pretty, I don't know, it's pretty cool. But that also gives me an idea. I need to test something. Grow board is 5. So let's do generate test map with type of 5. I don't have a separate class for each chess piece, so it makes more sense to load the texture through the code. Yeah, if you just use the load keyword, that will probably work then. Preload is like, it actually, the way it works is that it loads and caches the resource when the script is parsed, rather than when the script is like instantiated. So that's the reason why it has to be a constant string, because the variable is not actually in context at the time that preload happens. Oops. So if I add the monolith and then I go to grow board, does this work? This should move. Okay, it does work. Okay, good. I shouldn't be able to move this either. How many artifacts have you made so far? Do you have a goal number you're trying to reach before release? I don't have a goal number for artifacts specifically. Artifacts are interesting because they're pretty easy to make, and I just kind of like add them as I think of them. But there's this many artifacts, so I could actually, let's see. Open in File Manager. There are 39 artifacts currently. I think what I would like to do is I'd like to get to around like 100 artifacts by release. But we'll see. Like, I also don't want to be in a situation where I'm adding artifacts just to hit an arbitrary number. Like, I want to make sure that each artifact is actually doing something interesting. So if it ends up being a little bit less than 100, like 80 or 75 or whatever, that's fine too. Mostly I'm just concerned with, like, in order for this game to have like a lot of replayability, like there needs to be a good amount of variety in like how you can play the game and like the different the different things that are going to modify how you're playing the game. Yeah, so we'll see. I think I meant card. Oh, cards I have, let's see. There are 113 player cards and 81 enemy cards. So that's what, 194 cards total in the game. The goal is to get to somewhere around like 400 total cards, with 300 being player cards and like 100 being enemy. Or maybe, you know, it might be a little bit different, like 350, or sorry, like 250 for player and like 150 for enemy. So I'm halfway through all the cards that I need to make. Oh, immovable monolith is missing flavor text. How is that possible? Oops. You're welcome, Mark. That's awesome. I'll try that. How big is this project? I mean, how many size it occupied? On disk, it's several hundred megabytes on disk, with the overwhelming majority of that size being the sound effects. Like one sound effect is like bigger than the whole rest of the assets combined. Like if you add up all the scripts and all the custom resources and all the images in the game, like I don't know how big that is. It's probably less than 15 megabytes. And I've got some sound effects like music tracks in the game that are like 30 megabytes. So it's the audio really that's taking up a lot of the space. I may look into like compressing those. The problem is, for the audio in this game, I have my default WAV file import settings set to import at 22,050 sample rate. So the typical like studio sample rate, which I don't really think is the studio sample rate anymore, is like 44,100. But by having it to 22,050, it makes it sound a little bit more retro. It makes it kind of sound like a 90s sound effect. And also for the music, what I do is my musician friend gives me the high quality track. I render that to a 64 kilobit per second MP3, and then I render it back into a WAV file that has a mix rate or a sample rate of 22,050. And that creates like a very like kind of, I don't know, it just creates like this retro kind of almost lo-fi feel to the sound effects. But at the end of the day, it's still a WAV file, so it's like 30 megabytes, even though it's an MP3 that was rendered to 64 kilobits and then back to sample rate of 22,050. But I don't know if I could do like, I don't know if I could change the sample rate of like OGG or not. I haven't looked into that. Why does Primeval Hand have a little fire effect? Is that intended? I don't think it does. Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, maybe we're looking at this guy here, the tutorial guy. Is this your biggest game so far? Yes. Yes, it is. I like the dots up here to show it's adjacent. Good UX. That might not be super obvious, though. Artifact idea. When critical chance exceeds 100%, there's an additional chance to crit using the last crit's value as the new base. Oh, wow. That's a good one. Copy text. Just copy that verbatim. You need to add an unstoppable something artifact to pair with your immovable monolith. Yeah. Great work. Looks really interesting. All your debugging and editor tools are also very cool to see. Inspiring workflow. Thank you. Yeah. I think it's coming along well, but we'll see. Nintendo often downsample their SFX. Yeah. Working with audio with Godot was kind of buggy last time I tried it, like 3.x. In the unlock screen, there was a little flame. Oh, right. That's the unlock indicator. So that's just a little indicator of like what you've newly unlocked. If I hover over it, it goes away. It's a little bit weird in this situation because like I've set the debug setting to unlock everything by default so that I can see everything. but that little flame indicator is supposed to be to tell you what's new. I like the lich. I really like how the lich turned out. I think I do want to redo the Necromancer a little bit. Brittle bones! I love brittle bones. Okay. Anyway, I am getting relatively hungry here, so I'm going to end the stream there, but a little bit of a longer stream today. Sorry for being late this morning, but, you know, it goes like that sometimes, I guess. But, yeah, if you are interested in the game, you can wishlist Alchemortis on Steam, rather. I would appreciate it if you could wishlist it. You can also subscribe to the Patreon. Again, the playtest, which I will be shadow dropping, so you're gonna have to keep an eye on that. The playtest will be open to Patreon members for 1 week first. So you have to be an active Patreon subscriber to get access to the playtest for the first week. But then for the week after that, it's gonna be open to the general public. So join the Discord to get notified when both the Patreon exclusive playtest goes live and then when the public playtest goes live. And yeah, I'm really curious to hear what you guys think about all the new changes. I mean, since the last playtest, here's everything that 204 cards in this to-do list got done since the last playtest. So some pretty substantial changes here. I'm very curious to hear what you guys think of it. But I'll be spending this weekend just trying to get the playtest, you know, all polished up, and maybe a chunk of next week as well. Or maybe the next 2 weeks I'll spend polishing the playtest, who knows. But anyway, take care, everyone. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Game looks fun, I can't lie. Thank you. And appreciate all of your support. Have a good day, and I will see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern. Okay, bye-bye.